Read the following story and answer the question that follows. Remember to mark up the text to help you understand ideas. These families feel forgotten as New York City pushes to open schools by Eliza Shapiro, published September 14th, 2020, updated September 21st, 2020, New York Times. Months of remote learning have taken a harsh toll on New York City's roughly 114,000 homeless students and their families. Number 1. This past March was a blur for Ariane Allen, a mother of 2 who lives in Brooklyn homeless shelter. She spent the entire month battling the coronavirus in her small shelter unit. It was impossible to maintain distance from her son and daughter, and they both got sick too. As soon as her family recovered, Miss Allen set out on a mission that 5 months later is still unfinished. Making sure her children could learn, it took weeks for her son and daughter, then in 3rd and 12th grade, to receive iPads from the Department of Education. They were weeks behind in schoolwork by the time they were able to start remote learning. Number 3, after Mrs. Allen's family was forced to move into a different shelter this summer, there was a new problem. The shelter has no Wi-Fi and barely any cell service. So Miss Allen had to dip into the money she makes as a housekeeper to pay for unreliable wireless hotspot. Number 4, I don't pass up an opportunity when it comes to education for my children, Miss Allen said. But with the start of the city's school year just a week away, she still isn't sure that her son will be able to learn remotely on the days he's at the shelter. New York City students will attend school in person 1 to 3 days per week this year and learn at home the rest of the time. Number 5, New York City's unplanned experiment in remote learning has been disastrous for many of the city's 1.1 million school children, but has been particularly catastrophic for its roughly 114,000 homeless students who rely on school buildings for meals, physical and mental health services, and stability. Number 6, homeless families and activists say the city has not done enough to prepare the children who have suffered most for the challenging school year ahead. Number 7, now that Mayor Bill de Blasio has delayed the start of the school year until September 21st, the school should use the time to address glaring issues for homeless students, said Christine Quinn, who runs WIN, a local network of family homeless shelters. Number 8, the city has opportunity to course correct, she said. We have one chance to get this right for our most vulnerable students. Let's not squander it. Number 9, when city schools shutter suddenly in March, the nation's largest school system had to scramble to move education online. Inconsistencies in remote learning and delays in getting devices to vulnerable children were all but inevitable. But now, nearly 6 months later, some homeless children are still struggling to log on for remote classes using the city's free iPads. Some families are still waiting for information about whether the children will have access to city-funded childcare on days they're learning remotely. 11. Though the city's homeless students will get priority for childcare seats, charter school students, roughly 11,000 of whom are homeless, will not have access to the program. And experts say the city should prioritize homeless students for full-time in-person instruction if they want it. Number 12. We are extremely concerned that students already went months with little learning happening and that the loss will only continue unless the city steps up, said Randy Levine, the policy director at Advocates for Children of New York, a research and legal group. For students who are homeless, it feels like we're in a similar place that we were in the spring. Number 13. Avery Cohen, a city spokeswoman, defended Mr. de Blasio's handling of the issue. Number 14. As we prepare for fall, we're wholly committed to helping our most vulnerable students succeed, she said. Number 15. Mrs. Cohen said the city was tackling connectivity issues by dispatching Department of Education technology specialists to help families, and noted that all iPads and unlimited data were working for many families. Number 16. She also noted that the city recently finalized busing routes for homeless students, a major concern. Most homeless children have a legal right up to transportation and sometimes live in shelters across the city from their schools. Number 17. The city has struggled for years to accommodate its ballooning homeless student population, which has grown by 70% over the last decade. but recent gains for families have been compromised by the pandemic. Number 18, for example, although Mr. de Blasio's administration has added some social workers dedicated exclusively to serving homeless children, activists for the homeless say they need many more. But the city's economic crisis has led to a hiring freeze across agencies. Number 19, roughly a third of New York's homeless student population lives in shelters, and the rest live doubled up in unstable housing, often with family or friends, that tends to change frequently. Number 20, both housing situations present enormous challenges for the school year ahead, when city school children will be learning from home most of the time, if they do not opt for full-time remote classes. Families living in cramped apartments do not have access to social workers and staff in shelters that can troubleshoot issues with city officials. 21. Most city shelters do not have Wi-Fi, according to a recent report by the New York City Bar Association, and many shelter units do not even have cell service, making it impossible for families to use hotspots. 22. That's one big reason Ms. Allen is so eager for her son to return to the classroom, despite lingering concerns about safety. Number 23. Remote learning did not work for me, she said, adding she would be very disappointed if schools did not physically reopen. 24. In interviews, homeless families that are planning to send their children back into classrooms said their choice is not an endorsement of Mr. de Blasio's plan, rather reflects their need to send their children to schools so that they can work. 25. Mrs. Quinn, who runs WIN, said she has spoken to many mothers in shelters in recent weeks. They believe this plan is not sufficient, but they don't have the opportunity of working remotely or carving out time with their boss to do the virtual learning, she said. They sort of have to go back even if they don't want to. Number 26. Ms. Quinn and Ms. Levine, the advocate for homeless families, said that cities should train additional social workers to help homeless children navigate remote learning and should create more technical support for parents struggling to get their children online. Number 27, that would be a huge help for parents like Christine Jean-Baptiste, who relies on public Wi-Fi kiosks near the Manhattan shelter where she lives with her 2 children. Number 28, the service is always faulty and practically non-existent in bad weather. That has prevented Mrs. Jean-Baptiste from logging into some of her own community college courses and getting her 9-year-old daughter logged into remote learning for her charter school, which has already begun online courses. 29. Sometimes Ms. Jean-Baptiste stands at the closest Link New York City kiosk with her daughter's city-issued iPad in hand, trying to connect to the internet. She said the iPad security settings make it nearly impossible to upload new apps. Like number 32. Oh, I'm sorry. Number 30. We're kind of overlooked, said Ms. Jean-Baptiste, said of families in shelters. 31. She said her daughter has been so despondent about not seeing her friends that she sometimes does not want to get out of bed to log on into online classes. Ms. Jean-Baptiste said she hopes schools reopen as soon as possible, though her daughter's charter recently announced that it would stay remote until the winter. Number 32. Like so many families across New York, Ms. Jean-Baptiste said she still had questions about safety, and she lamented that the mayor's daily news conference rarely gave her the kind of information she was looking for about schools. Number 33. The decision about whether to return to school has presented city parents with a profound conundrum with few good options, but the choice between hybrid and remote instruction is particularly weighty for families who have largely run out of options. Number 34. Crystal Barora, a mother of 3 who lives in a shelter, said remote learning was a failure. Her daughter was just learning to read in her kindergarten class when schools shuttered abruptly, and it took 3 weeks for her to receive an iPad. Number 35. Now Ms. Baroa is worried her daughter will fall further behind in reading, and she sees her children running or turning inward and becoming more antisocial, even on the playground. Number 36. The Wi-Fi in her shelter is barely functional, and each day she seems seems to bring a new problem with the city-issued iPads. On top of that, Ms. Barora has to manage cooking, cleaning, and childcare as a single parent. Number 37, there's only so much we can do and still have our sanity, she said. Number 38, those factors might seem to tilt her decision towards sending her children back to the classroom, but one of them has asthma, and she worries that returning them to school would amount to a science experiment. So they are opting out of the in-person learning, and she will leave them with her mother during the day so she can go to work as a receptionist. Number 39, it was a wrenching choice. Number 40, at this point, she said, who really knows what's best?